to take the retirement savings of a generations of Americans and bet it on the market. That's the America that we see. That's the America we believe in. That's the choice in this election. Now, obviously, we've been through an incredibly difficult time as a nation. I never imagined that when I walked into the White House, preventing a second depression would be at the top of my to-do list. And even though we've done that, even though the economy is growing again and we're adding private sector jobs again, there is no doubt that because the hole was so deep, progress has been painfully slow. Millions of Americans remain unemployed. Millions more can barely pay the bills. Hundreds of thousands of families have lost their homes. And behind each of these numbers is a story of heartache and struggle. And I read about that heartache and struggle in letters that I receive every single night whenever I'm traveling around the country. So I know that people are frustrated, and they're angry, and they're anxious about the future. And I also know that in a political campaign, the easiest thing for the other side to do is to try to ride that anger and fear all the way to Election Day, especially when you got millions of dollars that you can burn on negative ads. That's what's happening right now. Look, let's face it. It would be one thing if Dick's opponent and other Republican candidates had looked back on the last decade and said, you know what, our policies really didn't work very well, did they? They kind of screwed up, and they went away, they meditated, they contemplated, and then they finally said, you know, everything we did ended up in this terrible recession. Let's try something new. And they came back and they said, we're going to propose something different. This time we think we've got the answer. But that's not what they're doing. They're not offering any new ideas. I would challenge anybody here to name a single new idea that they're putting forward. They don't have one. They're not offering new policies. The chair of the Republican Campaign Committee said that if they take over Congress, they will pursue the exact same agenda as they did before I took office. Now, keep in mind, we lost 4 million jobs in the 6 months before I took office. And they'd pursue what they say are the exact same policies. So here's what it comes down to. These folks spent a decade driving our economy into a ditch. And as soon as we took office, we put on our boots, we climbed down into the ditch. It was muddy down there. It was dusty. Bugs. And we're pushing on the car and we're trying to get it out and slipping and sliding. The whole time the Republicans are standing there, sipping on a Slurpee, just watching us, saying, you're not pushing hard enough. You're not pushing the right way. And we tell them, come on down here, help. We could use a hand. No, it's okay. And so finally, after 2 years of toil, we get this car back on the road. And we can see, you know, the way forward. And we get a tap on our shoulder. And we turn around, and it's the Republicans. And they say, can we have the keys back? No! You can't have the keys back. You don't know how to drive. You don't know how to drive, you can't have the keys. You don't know how to drive. All those, it's not just them either, all those special interests, they're all lining up. Yeah, we're going to ride shotgun. We can't give them the keys back. Have you ever noticed, by the way, that if you want to go forward in a car, you put your car in D? And if you want to go backwards, you put it in R? We'd end up right back in the ditch. It's true. You think that's a coincidence? It's not. If we gave them the keys back, they've told exactly what they plan to do. They want to go back to the days when credit card companies can jack up your rates without reason, and insurance companies can deny you coverage just because you got sick. They want to stand by and do nothing while states are forced to lay off teachers and firefighters and cops because, in the words of the Republican leader of the House, those are just, quote, government jobs, apparently not worth saving. They want to give more tax breaks to companies that ship jobs overseas instead of giving them to companies that are investing here in the United States. They want to borrow $700 billion to give a tax break worth an average of $100,000 to every millionaire and billionaire in America. Now, these are the people who lecture us on fiscal responsibility. The same people who refused to pay for 2 wars, 2 tax cuts for some of the wealthiest Americans, and left me as a welcoming present a $1.3 trillion deficit when I took office. And now they want to spend another $700 billion that 98% of Americans will never see. That's their agenda. That's the sum total of their agenda. That's what they're offering the American people. A future that looks just like the past. One where special interests get free rein to play by their own rules and where middle-class families are left to fend for themselves. Now, that's not a future I accept for the United States of America. That is not a future that Dick Blumenthal accepts for the United States of America. This is a tough election season. People are hurting, and they are understandably frustrated. And a lot of them are scared, and a lot of them are anxious. And that means that even when people don't have ideas, if they've got enough money behind them, they may be able to convince some folks that, you know what, just cast a protest vote. Throw the bums out. That's a mentality that has an appeal, and you can't blame folks for feeling that way sometimes. But that's not a future for our country. A country that's more divided, that's more unequal, that's less dynamic, where we're falling behind in everything from investment in infrastructure to investment in R&D. That's not a vision for the future. And if that's not a future you accept for this nation, if that's not the future you want for your kids and for your grandkids, then we are asking you for help in this election. Because if you don't think the stakes are large, I want you to consider this. Right now, all across the country, special interests are planning and running millions of dollars of attack ads against Democratic candidates. Because last year, there was a Supreme Court decision called Citizens United. They're allowed to spend as much as they want without ever revealing who's paying for the ads. That's exactly what they're doing. Millions of dollars. And the groups are benign sounding. Americans for Prosperity. Who's against that? Or Committee for Truth in Politics. Or Americans for Apple Pie. Moms for Motherhood. I made those last 2 up. None of them will disclose who's paying for these ads. You don't know if it's a Wall Street bank. You don't know if it's a big oil company. You don't know if it's an insurance company. You don't even know if it's a foreign-controlled entity. In some races, they are spending more money than the candidates. Not here, because here the candidate's spending a lot of money. They're spending more money than the parties. They want to take Congress back and return to the days where lobbyists wrote the laws. It is the most insidious power grab since the monopolies of the Gilded Age. That's happening right now. So, there's a lot of talk about populist anger and grassroots, but that's not what's driving a lot of these elections. We tried to fix this, but the leaders of the other party wouldn't even allow it to come up for a vote. They want to keep the public in the dark. They want to serve the special interests that served them so well over the last 19 months. We will not let them. We are not about to allow a corporate takeover of our democracy. We're not about to go back to the days when special interests took advantage of Main Street families. We're not going to go back to the days when insurance companies wrote the rules that let you languish without health care because you had a pre-existing condition. We're not going to go back to the exact same agenda we had before I took office. A lot has changed since that last election, but what hasn't changed is the choice facing this country. It is still fear versus hope. It is still the past versus the future. It is still a choice between sliding backwards and moving forward. That is what this election's about. That's the choice you will face in November. So I need you to knock on some doors for Dick Blumenthal. I need you to talk to your neighbors about Dick Blumenthal. I need you to make phone calls for Dick Blumenthal. We need you to write some more checks for Dick Blumenthal. We need you to do this for candidates all across the country, because the only way we'll match their millions of dollars is if we've got millions of people making their voices heard. And none of this will be easy. It's going to be hard, but you didn't elect me to do what was easy, and you're not going to elect Dick to do what was easy. You elect us to do what is right. So help me get Dick elected, and let's keep on moving forward. Connecticut, thank you very much. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.